welcome back to Rubyvale Road. I'm Alexandra and today I am making a linen v-neck tiered maxi dress. It's actually a really easy tutorial. It's something that I had an idea of making because I've seen a few of these sort of dresses popping up through my Instagram, and it's probably not something I would ever buy, but looking at it I was like, that's really easy to make. So I hope this video leaves you feeling inspired to make one of your own, and of course if you have any questions or comments, leave me a comment. I'm always happy to help if you need anything, any questions answered. If you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Rubyvale Road YouTube channel, and go and check out my website www.rubyvaleroad.com and my Instagram, which is just @rubyvaleroad. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you again soon. Best wishes on all your sewing adventures. The materials for this project are really easy. You'll just need fabric. I'm using a beautiful linen. You'll need a fair bit of fabric. I would say at least 2.5 if you're quite short like me, and maybe 3 to 3.5 if you're really tall. And then also, of course, you'll need matching thread to go with it. And of course your usual sewing kit and sewing machine. So first things first, we're going to need to make our pattern, so we're going to need to take our measurements. And it's pretty easy, this one, so we're not doing any darts or anything like that. So we're just going to do some very easy basic measurements just around our bodice, and then from there it's just going to be rectangles to make the skirt. So to start off with, just grab your tape measure, and we're going to start with, I think it's good to wear something nice and tightly fitted. It just sort of gives you you've got something to work with then. So I know where my shoulder seam is here on my t-shirt, so I'm just going to, we're going to measure down from our shoulder down to our waist, and so I'm going to do a little bit higher than my natural waist, which is down here. I'll probably do a little bit higher just so it swings out a bit more. So yeah, shoulder to waist, mine's 30. I'm going to go to about here. And then we're going to want the shoulder to where you want your top to sit. So I don't want mine too low. I probably want mine just to here. So I'm just going to measure that straight down. So it's probably always good, to go a little bit higher, and then if you want it a bit lower you can cut it down later. And then under the arm, so just put your tape measure just above where your bra strap is, like under here, because you obviously want to cover that up, and then down to where you measured where you want the waist to sit. So I think I was about down here. And then lastly, you'll just need your bust measurement. So widest part of your bust, put the tape measure all the way around and relax your arms. And then the last measurements that you're going to need are going to be the length, so the tiers. For the skirt, I'm just going to do 2 tiers. So I'm going to do the first tier coming from the waist, which I have sitting about here, and then I want it to finish, let me see if I can stand up my tippy toes. I want it to finish just above my knee, the first tier, so I'm going to go down to there. And then to measure the second tier, I will just start from where I measured it, just above my knee, right down to the floor, but you might need someone to help you with those measurements. They're a bit harder. So moving on to making our pattern from the measurements that we took. So first of all, we're going to I'm just going to use the nice straight edges of my paper. So this is going to be the waist down here, and then this will be the edge that we will place on the fold of the fabric when we cut the pattern out. So from here I'm going to measure out my bust measurement divided by 4. So for me that was 20.5. So I'm just going to rule this all the way along. With the way I've got my camera set up and the way I'm drawing, nothing seems to be working out very straight, so I do apologise for that. Okay, so once we have that drawn, I'm then going to sort of rule this across here. So now I know that I've got this rectangle to play with to put all my measurements into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my piece of paper, then like a hot dog, but just folding it to the line that I've ruled. And that way I know that I've got a nice fold to work with to add in the strap. Next one we're going to measure up is the measurement we took, which was from under the arm to the waist, plus 3 centimeters. So for me, I measured 17 centimeters, and then I'm going to add 3 centimeters for seam allowance. So this will be our underarm down to our waist. I'm just going to draw that in a bit darker. And then you can also rule that across if you like. And then we also need to measure in our measurement that we took from our shoulder down to our waist, also plus 3 centimeters for our seam allowance. So for me, I'm going to have to use the big ruler. So mine was like, I think I measured about 36 centimeters and add 3 centimeters, about 39. Doesn't quite fit on this paper, that's alright. Let's make a little mark. And then up there, we need to add in the width for our strap. So I'm going to do 5 centimeters. So what I'm going to do is just place the 2.5 here on my fold, so lining it up with this mark here, and measure 2.5 on that side and 2.5 centimeters on this side. So I'll have 5 centimeters there, and then from there all we have to do is we're going to sketch a nice curve from our underarm up to our top of our shoulder. Doesn't need to be too curvy, it's just enough to give a little bit of room under there. And then we just need to measure down from our shoulder down to where we measured the V-neck to sit on our body. So I measured about 17 centimeters down. And then I can just line up the outer edge of the strap, real line, so I have a nice V-neck to our dress. And then we just need to label our patterns. The V-neck tiered dress. This is the front and back bodice, because we're going to use the same pattern for the front and the back. And then along this edge here, which will be the edge that we need to cut on the fold, just sort of draw a little marking like this to say cut on fold. And that should be everything you need. And then the very last step, which is very important and is I've gotten and I keep forgetting, I do apologise, we need to add seam allowance. We've added the seam allowance here for our vertical seams, but we need to add the seam allowance here for these seams along here. So of course we just add 1.5 centimeters seam allowance. If you like to use a different colour, then go ahead and do that, just so you know which colour, you've got a different colour, so you know to cut out along that edge. And then I'll just use my ruler. And then using paper scissors, just cut your pattern out. One pattern piece. So we're going to have 2 tiers for the skirt. So essentially they are just 2 rectangles, 2 big rectangles sewn together and gathered along the top. So for the width of the rectangle, it needs to be your bust measurement times 1.5. So for me that is going to be 123 centimeters. And then the second tier will be your bust measurement times 3. So for me, that's going to be 246 centimeters. Now my fabric won't be enough width for the 246 centimeters, so I will probably have to cut 2 rectangles, but just cut as many rectangles as you need till you get to that measurement. And then in terms of length, it'll be, the first tier will be from the waist to just above your knee, plus 6 centimeters for seam allowance, and then the second tier will be from above your knee to the floor, plus 6 centimeters of seam allowance. Alright, so to cut out our bodice, we're going to place this on the fold, just fold over part of your fabric, just enough width that your pattern piece will fit on, and then we can pin it all in place and cut around, and of course don't cut on the fold. And we're going to cut out 4 of these so that we can have a lining to put into the bodice. So we'll have 2 fronts and 2 backs. So now we're going to need to cut out our rectangles for the tiers of the skirt. So for the rectangles, I am just going to take my fabric and I'm just going to measure. And then that's our other tier. And now finally we are up to the very last thing that we need to cut out, which is going to be the 4 straps to tie the dress up at the shoulders. So I'm going to cut mine out at 8 centimeters wide and 33 centimeters long, each 33 centimeters long. 8 centimeters wide, and then I will measure my 33 here. If you want to have a nice big bow at the shoulder, by all means make them nice and long. I prefer just like sort of like a little knot, half bow sort of thing, so I'm not making them super long. So now we're going to get to start putting this all together. So we're going to take a front and back piece and with right sides facing together, we will just pin the side pin and sew down the side seams. And we're going to do that for our outer layer, and we will also do the same for our lining layer. So that's one, and then we'll do the other two pieces. So stitch those together with 1.5 centimeter seam allowance and a regular straight stitch. Once you've stitched your seams, always remember to give the seams a really good iron by pressing them open, flat on the inside, and then turning it in the right way and pressing them flat on the right side. So once the side seams are sewn and ironed, we are going to take our lining and we're going to turn it out the right way so that the seams are all facing inside, and then we're going to take our outer bodice and we're going to put our lining into our outer bodice, and we're going to sew around all the way around the neckline, except at the shoulder seams. We're not going to sew at the shoulder seams. At the V-neck at the front, we're going to have to sew that like a corner, so you'll sew all the way down, you'll leave your needle in the fabric, lift up your presser foot, turn it around, and then sew back up the other way. So once you have sewn around the neckline and under the arms and the armholes, we are just going to make sure you press all your seams flat again, and then we're just going to take a little pair of clippers or scissors, and we're just going to do a few little snips all the way around the armhole because it's a curve there, and so you just cut these parts out to help make it sit nice and flat. Just be careful you don't go too close to the sewn seam. Once you have it all snipped around the edges, then you can just turn it out to the right way, and then you can give it another iron along all the seams to press them nice and flat. But you'll see now that this sits a lot better, but if it doesn't sit quite flat yet, then just give it a few more snips in around the V-neck. So this one sits really well there. So this one under here, all I'm going to do is I've cut the little triangle out, and so I'm just going to cut it a little bit more into the V there, so it spreads. And you can see now that it sits so much flatter. Next up, we are going to be making the 4 ties for the shoulders. So just take your 4 ties, and all we're going to do to make these is fold them with right sides together and sew them each along the long edge. Once you have all 4 sewn, then just take a safety pin and turn them out the right way. Then to finish the ties before we attach them to the dress, we are just going to fold over one end of each tie and top stitch it across so that it's nice and neat and finished off. So just fold it in under like that, top stitch across it as close as you can to the folded edge. So I've done the straps, so I just stitched across the top there, and then I've given them all a really good press. And then I'm going to take my bodice, and I've given the bodice a really good press along all those seams as well, and I'm going to just turn it back inside out. So that's back inside out. So I'm just going to take the strap and at the shoulder seam, so I'm just going to place it inside so the raw edges are all together along there, and then the strap is just hanging down on the inside between the lining and the outer of the dress. And then all I'm going to do is just pin it in place, try to center it as best you can, and then we'll just do the same. We'll just do the same on the other side. So I stitch along all those 4 shoulder seams with the straps in place with a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. With the bodice, at that stage we are going to move on to our tiers for the skirt. So we're going to have 2 tiers. We're going to sew down the side seam, so pin and sew those together. And then if you've got an overlocker to finish the raw edges, or otherwise just do a zigzag stitch along all the raw edges. And then once you have sewn the side seams of each tier, you then need to do a gathering stitch all the way round. So to do a gathering stitch, you set your machine to the longest stitch length, and you do 2 rows evenly spaced from the top of the fabric. So do like 1 centimeter down and then another centimeter down, and then make sure that you leave nice long ties on the threads. So you can see here I've got my side seam stitched together, and then I've done my gathering stitch. So I've just done a really nice long stitch with 2 rows, and then left all the ties here at the end, the long thread ties, and then all I'm going to do is grab 2 of them, yep, and then I'm going to very gently tug along to gather it all in. So we're going to gather it in until it is our bust measurement for the top tier. So just gather it all in until they fit the right measurements. So now that I have the first tier all gathered as much as I can, I am just going to attach this now to the bodice. So we just need to attach it to the outer, and we'll leave the lining free. This is going to be a bit tricky because they're both tubes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bodice, and I'm going to take my top tier of the skirt, and I'm going to turn this inside out like so. So I've got my seam on the outside, and then I've got my bodice here, and I'm going to put my bodice sort of like into the skirt there, and just taking the outer layer of the bodice, going to pin it with the right sides together all the way along. I'm going to line up the side seam of the skirt with one of the side seams of the bodice and pin that together there. And then I'm just going to first of all pin this all together. So pin this all the way around, and then we will sew it on the sewing machine. Now as you go, if you need to take the skirt in a little bit more, give it a bit more gathers, just gently tug again on the ends, on those thread ends, and vice versa if you need to let out some of the gathers, and just try to evenly space them as best you can. So here I've got my skirt inside out, and then I've got my bodice here, so I'm pinning the right side of the outer layer of the bodice to the right side of the skirt, and I'm just going to go all the way around, and we're going to sew just underneath where that gathering stitch is. And then we just sew all the way around that. So we've got bodice attached to tier number 1 now. Now if you wanted the short dress, of course, you are welcome to leave it at this length and just hem the bottom of it with a roll and roll. But I'm going to add the extra length on there and make a nice maxi dress. Because I hate shaving my legs, and I am really over it, so I just need to have something to cover it up on those days that probably need it more than other days. Anyway, so we're going to take this bottom tier now, and we're going to turn it inside out, and we are going to line up one side seam with this side seam. Open that seam up nice and flat, and we're going to do exactly the same, just pin it all the way around and sew it together. So we've got our third and final tier all sewn in now. So all that's left to do now is you probably should try it on just so you can double check the length and see where it's all sitting in case you need to cut a bit off the length. Yeah, and then you can just do a roll and roll, so just roll up like a centimeter and then another centimeter. The last step for the dress that we need to finish off is the lining on the inside at the bodice. So we're just going to need to fold over like a centimeter or half a centimeter just so it meets down here at the edge of that gathering stitch, and pin it in place. And you've got 2 options with how you want to do this. You can just hand stitch it if you like all the way around, or otherwise you can do a top stitch. So just pin it down, make sure it does reach below the below your seam there, and then you can just do a stitch right on top inside that little seam there. So you shouldn't be able to see it, and it's just a casual dress, so I think that would be okay to finish it that way if you prefer. We've also got the raw edges of the seams, so again, if you've got an overlocker, just overlock them off, or otherwise you can use a zigzag stitch or pinking shears, or otherwise you can also sort of fold the seam over if you like, or fold the seams in on each other and top stitch that all the way around, whichever way you prefer, that you find the easiest to finish those seams off. So here I am in the finally completed dress. I've been working on it all day and I'm so happy with it now. Just a few notes though. Well, as you make the dress, make sure you try it on with the bodice. So like I said, when you're making the bodice, if you do want to lower the neckline a little bit and whatnot, you can do that as you go. So I put it on tonight and I realized, oh, it's probably a little bit too high for me. So I just lowered it down just like a centimetre or so. And then also through the armholes, I found that they were just sitting out a bit too much, and I think I just needed to take them, just curve them in a little bit more, just because I am quite a petite frame and I felt like it is gathered and long and whatnot, so I was being a little bit too swallowed up by the bodice. But I did leave it at the back, so you can see what it was originally like at the back. At the front, it was this square shape, which I don't mind at the back. A little bit of coverage is fine, but yeah, at the front, I just wanted to at the front, I just wanted to sort of streamline it a little bit more, because obviously, yeah, the skirt is quite full and there's a lot of fabric. But overall, I am super happy with it. It's a really easy dress to make. It is just a casual dress, so I'm just going to be wearing this with like sneakers and sandals over togs. Those days you're running errands, and like I said, don't want to shave my legs. So this is my new little go-to maxi dress, and it's so nice and cool and lightweight. Like, even though it's long and a lot of fabric, it's still easy because it's linen. So it's really fun. But yes, I really hope that you enjoy making your own dress like this and enjoy wearing it out as much as you like. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.